On to today's business matters. Apple's new iPhone fell short of forecast, but that didn't stop the company from reporting record revenue. The world's most valuable company yesterday reported $124 billion in revenue last quarter. The iPhone 16 made $69.7 billion, which is $1 billion less than analysts estimated for the holiday season. The company performed particularly poorly in China, raking in $18.5 billion there, more than $2 billion short of estimates. Mac and iPad sales went up, but what really propped up Apple's revenue was its services sector. That includes things like Apple TV Plus, Apple Music, and device warranties. The segment grew to $26.3 billion from just over $23 billion during the same quarter in 2023. Apple's shares shot up 3% in after-hours trading on the report. And the FDA has approved the first new type of pain medication in more than 2 decades, and it's not an opioid. The drug is suzetrigine under the brand name Journavax. It's now FDA approved to treat moderate to severe acute pain, which is usually caused by injury, trauma, or surgery. Pain is registered in your body through nerve endings which carry a signal to the brain. Journavax would prevent those pain signaling nerves from firing in the first place. That's different from how opioids work because they just dull the sensation of pain in the brain. Doctors also believe there's no risk in people becoming addicted to Journavax because it doesn't create the high that opioids sometimes can. But doctors warn Journavax may not be for everyone, such as those with chronic pain. The FDA says some of the most common side effects reported among study participants include itching, muscle spasms, and rash. The last time the agency approved a new painkiller was in 1998. An unfavorable prescription handed down to Walgreens shareholders. The US pharmacy chain said it has suspended its quarterly cash dividend. That's a cash payment made by the company to shareholders periodically. Shareholders reacted by sending shares into the red. Walgreens explained that the decision was part of its restructuring efforts. In a statement, the company said it needs cash over the next several years for litigation and debt refinancing actually. It plans to shut thousands of stores and is facing a lawsuit that alleges it knowingly filed millions of prescriptions that lacked legitimate medical purposes. And Apple Watch owners have until April 10th to be part of a $20 million battery swelling settlement. Anyone who owned an eligible watch model and reported any potential battery swelling issues between late April 2015 to early February last year can be paid. The eligible models are Series 0 through 3. Those who don't wish to be included have until the end of February to exclude themselves or object. In the agreement and on its website, Apple explicitly denies allegations of wrongdoing and liability. Instead, the tech giant said it has settled to avoid further legal costs. And there may be picket lines tomorrow at one of the nation's largest retailers. 18,000 Costco workers are preparing for a potential strike at the company's warehouses in 5 states: New York, New Jersey, Virginia, Washington, and California. Members of the Teamsters Union authorized a strike earlier this month unless the new contract was reached with the retailer before the end of today. Workers are asking for better wages and benefits, but Costco told employees this week that it will increase its hourly wage to more than $30 for most of its store workers in the U.S. The wholesale retailer said it will bump pay up over the next 3 years. There's no telling yet if this is enough to call off the strike. And rising energy demand in the U.S. is putting pressure on existing infrastructure, and planned upgrades may not be completed in time. In 2021, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission ordered 6 major regional grid operators to update their systems based on weather-driven capacity needs. However, a Reuters survey found that none of the 6 operators will meet the July deadline. Several plan to file for an extension, and one has already secured an extension through 2028 amid soaring demand. President Trump has declared a national energy emergency, warning that the electric grid is becoming increasingly unreliable. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is making a push for hydrogen power plants. Shapiro said he wants the state to keep in pace with others attracting big projects, such as data centers and EV factories. The Democratic governor plans to offer hundreds of millions in tax breaks and streamline permitting for new projects. Republican lawmakers say this is a major hurdle for Pennsylvania to attract these companies and stabilize the power grid. Critics also charge that the state should focus on proven energy solutions rather than speculative hydrogen ventures. Meanwhile, big tariffs are expected from the White House this weekend. President Trump is targeting Mexico and Canada first. Supporters say it will advance American interests, while opponents say it will raise costs for goods. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the details.
A controversial campaign promise soon to become reality. Trump is planning to place 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico this Saturday. The president in the Oval Office yesterday told reporters why.
Number one is the people that have poured into our country so horribly and so much. Number two are the drugs, fentanyl, and everything else that have come into the country. And number three are the massive subsidies that we're giving to Canada and to Mexico in the form of deficits.
He added that the tariffs may or may not rise over time. China is also expected to meet with a 10% tariff. Some warn this tariffs hike would raise costs for Americans. Car prices could especially rise since GM, Ford, and Stellantis have plants in Mexico and Canada.
We raise tariffs, and that's a bit inflationary. Other countries may raise their tariffs, and to the extent we keep importing from them, that's also inflationary.
A claim that Trump's nominee for Commerce Secretary brushed aside earlier this week.
A particular product's price may go up, but all of them, this is not inflationary. We need that disrespect to end. And I think tariffs are a way to create reciprocity, to be treated fairly, to be treated appropriately. And I think it will help our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen to flourish.
Trump said the impacts from the tariffs will be made up very quickly because he says we don't need the products that they have. The U.S. imports a great deal of its fresh vegetables, baked goods, and other food items from Canada and Mexico. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Now, before tariffs can leave a bad taste for Colgate, the toothpaste maker is looking to reduce potential impacts. Colgate-Palmolive manufactures in Mexico for the U.S. Its CFO said its plans could impact its imports of raw materials like vitamins and amino acids and its finished products. Colgate-Palmolive has also increased its U.S. production capability over the years and said it could rely on co-manufacturers. His comments come one day before President Trump pledged to impose 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. President Trump said this is to halt illegal immigration and the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. The Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge heated up again in the final month of 2024. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index rose 2.6% year over year in December. That's up from November's 2.4%. The increase, which was in line with economists' expectations, was driven largely by rising energy and food prices. However, a closely watched measurement of underlying inflation trends indicated some progress in the fight to rein in price hikes. The core PCE price index excludes the more volatile components of gas and food. It hit expectations with the annual rate of underlying inflation holding at 2.8% for the third month in a row. And Samsung says it could face slower chip sales despite its title as the world's largest memory chip maker. The electronics giant has a smaller rival making big gains. Here's more.
Samsung warned of slow AI chip sales over the first quarter of the year. In an earnings call Friday, the South Korean tech giant said that's due to recent US restrictions that aim to tighten the flow of advanced chips to China. Chinese customers make up 20% of Samsung's sales of HBM, or high bandwidth memory chips. Those have been a bright spot in a weak chip market thanks to the AI boom. But Samsung, the world's biggest memory chip maker, is playing catch-up to its smaller local rival SK Hynix, which is NVIDIA's main supplier of such chips. As for the overall memory market, Samsung said it expects demand to recover from the second quarter, and said it would continue to work towards providing high-end chips to NVIDIA. The South Korean firm on Friday confirmed a fourth quarter profit of just under $4.5 billion. That was down 29% from the previous period, but a major increase from the same time a year ago, when the chip business was in its worst downturn in decades. Samsung is also grappling with weak smartphone sales. Operating profits for its phone business fell 22% in the fourth quarter compared to the same time a year earlier.
President Trump warned BRICS member countries yesterday against, that is, replacing the US dollar as a reserve currency. Trump threatened 100% tariffs if they do so. The BRICS include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In 2023, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates joined the organization. Indonesia became a member earlier this month. A long-running discussion over a common currency have gained momentum after the West imposed sanctions on Russia for its war in Ukraine. Russia said there were no plans for a new currency, but added that any U.S. attempt to compel countries to use the dollar would backfire. Trump's warning to BRICS comes as Canada and Mexico await his decision to follow through on a pledge to impose 25% tariffs effective tomorrow. Now let's go to DeepSeek, artificial intelligence. OpenAI is accusing the Chinese startup of inappropriately using its data to develop its chatbot. The company says it's reviewing evidence that DeepSeek may have copied its models. Meanwhile, the White House says it's looking into national security risks tied to DeepSeek, which stores under user data in China, and a cybersecurity firm found the app accidentally exposed sensitive information online. Lawmakers are now pushing for restrictions on Chinese AI. A new Senate bill would ban U.S. companies from working with China on AI and limit tech exports. DeepSeek has denied wrongdoing, but officials warn of potential threats to data privacy and national security.